Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, we have the first part of a 3-video series here on my channel over the next 3 days. It's going to be the best defenders, best midfielders and best forwards, where we basically take a look at every player in the game, look at their underlying data, and I tell you who are my favourites at each of the price points. So today we have the best defenders, and if you are excited for the future 2 videos, do make sure to drop a like down below. But without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So guys, in today's video, we are focusing on the defenders, and I'm going to go through 3 different price points, and I'll discuss the defenders in that price point as well. So we're going to start with the £4.5 million defenders, then move on to the £5 to £5.5 million defenders, and then finish with the premium defenders. And at each of these price points, I will give you my personal preference on which players I'm currently looking at. It's worth noting that every single day we get new information, so at the time of me recording this, we might get something that completely changes this a day later, and as a result, we have to update our thought process. We've spoken about this in the past, plan continuation bias, so do stay dynamic, do stay adaptive. Take everything I'm saying with a slight pinch of salt, because not only is it in my opinion, but these things change quite regularly as well. This is data from the 21-22 season, primarily taken from Fantasy Football Scout, also a little bit from FPL Review in there as well. It is worth noting that whilst it's useful to take data from previous seasons, and I still do back that it's probably the best way to approach which players to pick, things do change, and like there might be a formation change this season, there might be new players that they've signed. Obviously, we don't expect a continuation of the performance exactly from last season, so if there's anything I've missed from pre-season, if you support any of these clubs and you think I've misidentified a certain player as being a good option, please do let me know down below. I'm always interested, whether it's criticism or not, I'm always interested to hear what you guys think. Just with respect to what these tables are going to look like for the next 3 videos, I've tried to simplify it from last season. That's not to say that I don't want to go into as much depth. I just don't think I need to present to you guys like 400 different underlying pieces of data. So what we've got is we've got their price, moving from left to right on this table. We've got their projected points from Gameweek 1 to Gameweek 5 taken from FPL Review. We've got points per start last season, so how many FPL points did they actually accumulate, which gives you a bit of an idea about what kind of FPL asset they were. We've then got, which is my most useful piece of data, if I'm only going to select one, it's their non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. This gives us a bit of an idea about how many expected goals they were expected to get and expected assists as well combined. That's what expected goal involvement is. And then the final 2 are to do more about team data. So we've got their minutes per expected goal conceded for the team. That gives us a bit of an idea about how good the defence is. So for Tomiyasu, the first option, Arsenal were the 7th best defence in the league last season, conceding an expected goal every 69.9 minutes. And the final column is fixture difficulty, taken from Fantasy Football Scout from Game Week 1 to Game Week 6. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea about what you're looking at with these tables. Starting with Tomiyasu. Tomiyasu was actually one of the most popular picks at the start of the sort of pre-season when the game launched. I myself said that Tomiyasu was arguably one of the best players. Unfortunately, his issues with injury since joining Arsenal have actually continued into pre-season. And at the time of recording this, again, data changes every single day. We might get new information the day after me recording this. At the time of me recording this, Arteta's latest statement was that he hopes that Tomiyasu will be fit for the Premier League opener. That doesn't sound particularly promising to me, but I do really like the Arsenal defence. We'll discuss that when we get onto the £5 million defenders. There are some really good options. But at 4.5, Tomiyasu and Ben White could both be good options if Tomiyasu's fit. You can see projected points pretty good at 13.8, is actually the 3rd best on this list. Points per start is the joint best on this list at 3.7. His non-penalty expected goal involvement's pretty decent, but what I like about Arsenal is they are a good defence. So they're the 7th best defence in the league, which is one of the best defences on this list here. And the fixtures are pretty good. Now, it's worth noting this is organised by defensive difficulty, so they're only the 7th best fixtures for Arsenal, but I still think it might be nice to try and get an Arsenal defender in there, especially when you can trust them. You might not want to go for like a Nottingham Forest defender because they're new to the league, whereas Arsenal, I think we're fairly happy saying that we expect them to be a top 6, top 7 side this season quite comfortably. So I like Tomiyasu, but maybe just monitor whether he's going to be fit or not. I've then actually got 2 Brighton defenders. It's because I think they're both good for different reasons. Dunk is a very consistent player at 4.5. He's actually got the highest projected points on this list. So of all the £4.5 million defenders, if you're trusting FPL Review, which is a very good algorithm, 14.8 is the one listed here. You've then got points per start last season was 3.2. They are the 6th best defence in the league. You can see here at 71.5 Brighton. So they were very good defensively last season. They were very good the season before as well. So I do think you can put Brighton in that category of a defence that we can trust moving forward. And they've also got the 4th best fixtures from a defensive perspective over the first 6 game weeks, Brighton. So I would probably say, if there are a team that we are maybe not giving enough consideration, and there are a defence which I don't think enough people are targeting, I would say that Brighton are probably that. You can go with Sanchez in goal if you want to. We're not going to discuss keepers here today, but you can go with Sanchez in goal, or Dunk, or Lamptey. Lamptey is the exciting pick. Right, Dunk is the more nailed on one, but you can see here non-penalty expected goal involvement. Lamptey's top of the bunch at 0.22. So with all of the 4.5 million pound defenders, if you think Lamptey's going to be nailed on, if you think he can avoid the injuries that he's suffered with in the past, Lamptey could be a really exciting pick, but I do feel like Dunk's the slightly safer one. But you can see there is quite a big disparity between Dunk's underlying data and Lamptey. So Lamptey is definitely the more attacking player, but maybe just give Brighton a bit of consideration. And maybe if you're not sure about Raya, maybe you're not sure about Melier in goal for Leeds, maybe you go, do you know what? Maybe I'll go for Sanchez, or maybe I'll go for Dunk or Lamptey in defence. I've got Ben Mee on here, like I said, just signed for Brentford. This could be Janssen, it could be Henry. Just to say that Brentford are actually a pretty good defence as well. Ninth best defence in the league last season. Ben Mee had very good data for Burnley. We know he's very, very good from corners. Maybe the Brentford defence aren't getting enough consideration either, although a lot of people are going for Raya instead, and I probably wouldn't advise a double up on the Brentford defence, but they do have the 6th best fixtures in the league, and you can see Ben Mee's projected points at 13.5 is pretty good as well. So maybe consider, along with Brighton, a Brentford defender. And if you remember my rotating defenders video, or my rotating players video from a couple of weeks ago, Brighton and Brentford rotate really nicely. So if you were to go for a Dunk and a Ben Mee, you could actually rotate those two really nicely and get a very good rotational pair for your back line. The player and the team that I'm very frustrated by, and I've spoken about this, is Crystal Palace just was so good for underlying data last season. I was so excited to pick at least one, maybe two Crystal Palace players going into the start of the Premier League. But you can see here, they've got the 20th, the most difficult fixtures in the league. But they are the best defence on this list. They were the 5th best defence in the league last season, according to expected goals conceded. Better than Arsenal, better than Brighton, better than Brentford. They were approaching the likes of Chelsea and Spurs as well. So by all accounts, Crystal Palace were excellent from a defensive perspective. They were actually the 8th best attack, according to expected data as well. So I think Crystal Palace are going slightly under the radar, but maybe correctly so, just because their fixtures are so difficult. But Mark Gehi, Anderson, Mitchell, whoever it is you want to pick from that Palace back line, if you can find a nice rotation, or maybe on your Game Week 5 or Game Week 6 wildcard, I guarantee Crystal Palace players, specifically their defenders, will be excellent value at some point this season. Maybe it's a wait and see, though, just due to the fixtures. And I suppose you've got maybe a similar sort of situation with the Leicester defenders. We've got James Justin listed here. Projected points quite low. We are worried that maybe there's a little bit of rotation with the Leicester fullbacks. They've got Thomas. At the time of recording this, they still have Castagna, Pereira, Justin. So they've got 4 good fullbacks that can play in those positions there. So maybe that's a slight worry. You can see his non-penalty expected goal involvement was decent last year. Nothing to write home about. Pereira and Castagna are excellent options as well. If you think you can nail down which of those Leicester wingbacks/fullbacks will play, I think going for any of them could be a nice option. But you can see last season they were the 17th. They were 17th for expected goals conceded in the Premier League, so they were one of the worst teams in the league, Leicester. Yes, they had injuries. Yes, they had Europe, but this does still worry me slightly that maybe we don't trust them from the off, and they don't have excellent fixtures. They're in the bottom half of the table for fixtures as well. So maybe I would place Justin alongside Gehi and Anderson and the Palace defenders in that sort of wait-and-see category. Maybe from like Game Week 6 onwards, that's when we start looking at Leicester and Crystal Palace. We do have my main man, Diogo Dalot, on there. A bit of a standing joke now, but a lot of people are starting to look at Dalot. I know a lot of people don't like it when I discuss Manchester United defenders. You can see they were mid-table last season. We finished 11th for expected goals conceded, so not a particularly excellent defence. And Dalot's numbers aren't great at 0.09. So by all accounts, if I'm taking the data from last season and I'm giving you a solid recommendation on who to pick, Dalot is not the one. But he is passing the eye test in pre-season. He will be more attacking under Ten Hag, because what Ten Hag likes to do is one of the fullbacks sits a little bit deeper and the other one plays slightly more attacking. And what we've seen so far in pre-season is Malacia and Shaw have just sat a little bit deeper and Dalot's pushed on. And he's got quite a good understanding with Sancho as well, whoever plays on that right. So I do like Dalot. I think he'll kick on this season. The only thing I would say about Dalot is we are still looking at right backs, Dumfries, Kyle Walker-Peters. There have been a few names floated about. If Manchester United do sign a right back, maybe Dallow's not the option we think he is. And like I said, the data maybe would just suggest that you don't go for a Manchester United defender anyway. But he is one of my favourites regardless. Botman's the other one that I've been speaking about, but not that many other people I've seen particularly picking Botman. His output was very, very good in the previous leagues that he's played in, but his underlying data isn't anything particular to write home about. You can see it's actually one of the worst on the list at 0.07, but he is good in the air. Newcastle's defence in the back end of the season, when Eddie Howe took over, was very good, but you can see across the season, they're more of a mid-table side. And again, Newcastle's fixtures just aren't fantastic. They've got really tricky fixture in 3, 5, and then not the easiest fixture in 6. So 3 of their opening 6 fixtures for Newcastle, not the best. So unless you can rotate Botman, maybe you don't pick him as sort of your lone £4.5 million defender. The final two are still good options as well. So we've got Vladimir Sofau. At the moment, still looks like he's going to be fairly nailed on at right back for West Ham. But again, West Ham have a similar issue of all of the ones we've just discussed here. The fixtures aren't fantastic for West Ham. But Sofau's underlying data is the joint second best on this list at 0.15 expected goal involvement. And when you take away that Manchester City fixture in Game Week 1, if you can get away with benching Sofau or a West Ham defender in Game Week 1 and play them from Game Week 2 onwards, they're actually probably a pretty good option. Nottingham Forest in Game Week 2. And from there, the fixtures are actually a little bit better. So maybe West Ham, and this goes for Bowen as well, which we'll discuss when we go on to the midfielders in tomorrow's video. Maybe West Ham going slightly under the radar just because of such a tricky Game Week 1 fixture. Maybe something to consider. And then the final one is arguably one of the best options on the list here, in my opinion, and that is a Wolves defender. Now, it could be Johnny, it could be Ait-Nouri, it could be Kilman. You could even push for 5 million up to Sarr and Cody. I'm hoping and assuming and I guess thinking and expecting that Wolves will kick on a little bit and won't have the season they had last year. Because you can see here, they were the 15th worst defence or the 15th best defence, right? One of the worst defences in the league last season, which was quite shocking because before that, they were the likes of like a Brighton. You could rely on Wolves to be incredibly solid defensively. They really struggled last year. So I suppose pre-season hasn't told us too much, but maybe we can expect a slight increase in performance from a defensive perspective for Wolves. Maybe you'd like to wait and see. But the great thing about Wolves is of all the players that I've listed here, they have the best opening fixtures, right? So they're the third best in the Premier League from a defensive perspective. Leeds and Fulham in the opening two. And the likes of Johnny and Ait-Nouri, you can see Johnny here, really good attacking numbers. Second best projected points on this list. Points per start at 3.6 is nothing, considering how bad Wolves were defensively, that's pretty good. Ait-Nouri is fairly similar. And 0.15 non-penalty expected goal involvement as well. The reason I like Johnny is he's got slightly better data than Ait-Nouri, and because he's right-footed, he can play right wing-back when Semedo's not there, but his favoured position is left wing-back / left-back, so I do think that he is probably still just about the favoured left wing-back for Wolves. But let me know down below, Wolves fans, do you think Johnny or Ait-Nouri are the more safe option, or do you think we should just go for Kilman just because you know pretty much he's going to start every single game? So putting all this together, sorry, that is 11 minutes just on the £4.5 million defenders. I think probably Brighton are a team that are going under the radar. Duncan Lamptey in particular look really good to me here. I do like the Brentford defenders if you're not going for Raya, so Ben Mee, Janssen, Henry, whoever it may be. Dalot and Botman, for me, are just two options that I think could kick on this season, but the data doesn't necessarily support that. And then a Wolves defender look like they could be a really good option, Johnny or Ait-Nouri. So I guess if I'm just trusting the data and not giving you my biased opinion, I'd say Dunk / Lamptey and Johnny are probably the two £4.5 million defenders that I think could be really good value. Let me know down below if you've got a £4.5 million defender in your team right now. Who is it and why are you currently picking them? Let's move on to the next price point. So the next price point is the £5 to £5.5 million defenders. I mean, in fact, there's only one £5.5 million defender, and that is going to be Perisic. But basically, the £5 million defenders, really weird, sort of tricky price point, I guess, because when you want to go for the best defenders, you go up to the £6 million and above, which we're going to move on to in the final section, those excellent premium defenders that we know and love. And then I guess if you don't go for them, you think, well, I might as well just save the money and go for one of those really valuable 4.5s, which we've just discussed there. And I feel like the £5 million defenders, as a result, aren't getting a lot of attention, but there is some excellent value and there is some really nice picks. Interestingly, with this sort of price bracket, there aren't lots of different teams to select from. As you can see, there's 3 from Arsenal, 2 from Villa, 2 from City, 1 from Newcastle, and then 2 from Spurs. It's worth noting straight away, as you can probably tell, I'm recording this a couple of days before the video goes live. I'm off to Ireland for an FPL meetup. If you are going to be there, do say hello. But I've got Cucurella as a Man City player. If he's not a Man City player and he's a Brighton player, obviously still listen to what I'm saying about Cucurella, but that will massively change how we feel about Cucurella and Walker. Outside of that, all of these players, Zinchenko's obviously already got his transfer here. And then the other point to note, again, because I'm recording this a couple of days before it will go live, Doherty there for Spurs. It looks like Doherty might be sold because Lucas Moura looks like he's going to be switched back into a wing-back role. They've just signed Spence as well, and they've got Emerson Royale too, so it might potentially be the case that Doherty's moved on, as there have been a couple of rumours about that. All of that being said, I do think we've got some excellent options here. Starting with the 3 Arsenal defenders, Gabriel, Tierney and Zinchenko, 3 £5 million defenders. I suppose the major issue with the £5 million Arsenal defenders is you can get, if he's fit, Tomiyasu at 4.5 or Ben White at 4.5. So I don't necessarily know that it's worth paying the extra 0.5. But a couple of these are really nice options. Gabriel in particular has made it into one of my recent drafts. He's got the highest projected, joint with Perisic, the highest projected points out of all of the players on this list at £5 million. You can see points per start was 4.2 last season. Really good. 0.11 expected goal involvement. Isn't terrible, isn't fantastic. Most of these players probably won't have the most excellent expected goal involvement because they're £5 million at the end of the day. And we've spoken about the fact that Arsenal have pretty decent fixtures and they have a pretty decent defence as well. Tierney, very, very similar to Gabriel, but the issue with Tierney is he's injured again. So at the time of me recording this, Tierney is not an option. We don't expect him to be fit for the start of the season. If he is, maybe we still wait and see because he just picks up injuries so very easily. The one that I'm really interested in is the man, we've got the picture there as well, which is actually Zinchenko. Zinchenko is really intriguing me here. Now, a lot of people have said, do you want Zinchenko seeing as he might play in midfield? I'll be completely honest. I think I prefer Zinchenko as a wing back / fullback for Arsenal, more of a fullback, but he will get forward. I don't necessarily think just because someone's playing out of position in midfield that they're suddenly a fantastic option. I think Zinchenko might actually be slightly more attacking in a fullback role because what happens with Arsenal, we've seen it in the past, sometimes that sort of left centre mid, whether it's a number 8 or someone in the pivot, they can drop a little bit deeper. We've seen it with Xhaka in the past, and then the fullback bombs on. So I think, to be fair, whether he plays in midfield or defence, I don't think that changes my opinion massively, but I actually think I probably prefer Zinchenko at left back. And assuming Tierney isn't fit to start the season, Zinchenko will probably sit in at left back to start. You can see projected points pretty high, and what I love is his non-penalty expected goal involvement last season, Zinchenko, was actually 0.26, which is exceptionally good. Yes, he was playing for Man City at the time. He's likely to get more chances under Man City. He's probably allowed a slightly higher licence to push forward for Man City, but that is still really good. So probably of the £5 million defenders, I would probably just about lean towards Zinchenko at the moment, but I don't mind Gabriel at all. And I feel like he's a slightly safer bet. And also, we know he has got quite a lot of goal threat from corners as well. He can be pretty good in the air. So I like the £5 million Arsenal defenders, arguably some of my favourite at that price point. You've then got the two Aston Villa fullbacks. We've got the very popular Matty Cash and the very unpopular Luca Dean. Interestingly, FPL Review have actually posed Dean ahead of Cash for projected points over the first 5. So that might suggest that maybe you could go for Luca Dean. I don't mind him as an option. Dean is on a lot of corners, whereas Cash isn't on any. So that is one thing that is an extra string to his bow for Luca Dean. But Cash gets into the box slightly more and takes slightly more shots. So it depends. With Luca Dean, what you have is more creativity. With Matty Cash, what you get is a slightly higher goal threat. Very similar underlying data. The only issue with Villa is, apart from their opening 2 or 3 fixtures, Villa's fixtures really aren't that great over the first 6. And even from a defensive perspective, they're 18th in the Premier League. So I don't mind starting with Cash or Dean, but I feel like I got carried away with their first couple of fixtures, and maybe I might avoid Villa for now, especially as at points last season, you can see they were 8th actually in the Premier League for expected goals conceded, but at points they just look so shaky at the back. They've not looked excellent in pre-season. I might give them just a couple of weeks to see how Villa look personally. If I were to go for one now, I actually might go for Luca Dean. I just think he's going to be slightly lower percentage owned. He's going to be on corners as well, slightly more routes to point, but I don't mind either of them. Let me know down below what you think of the Villa defenders. Cucurella. Right, I'm going to discuss him as a Man City player. Again, apologies that I'm having to do this, but it is the way it is with the transfer window at the moment. As a City player, exceptional option, assuming he gets into the starting 11, but I don't know how long that will take. Pep does sometimes sort of slowly introduce these players. Cancelo and Walker are still, in my opinion, whether Cucurella comes into City or not, they are going to be the first choice fullback. So I still do like Cucurella at City. I think at Brighton, he could even be a better option. Although, again, you've got Lamptey and you've got Dunk there for 4.5. So just basically keep your eyes on Cucurella and where he moves to. And if he does get his move to City, at the moment, it's all very up in the air. Fabrizio Romano doesn't know at the moment. No one really knows what's happening. So we'll have to wait and see there. But City are the best defence in the league by some distance. Look at that, by the way. 137.9 minutes per expected goal conceded. That is remarkably good. The second best is Liverpool, I believe, and it's something like 90. We'll get onto that. But no one comes close to City's defence from last season. They have the best fixtures in the league from a defensive perspective as well. So if you can get into the City defence for 5 million, it could be exceptional. And as a result, I actually believe my favourite £5 million defender at the moment is Kyle Walker. Not great underlying data, 0.13. It's better than Cucurella, to be fair, but he's not exceptional when he comes to going forward. But he's £5 million. I think he'll be fairly nailed on because even if Cucurella does sign, I don't think he'll get chucked straight into the starting 11. And I do think that Pep really likes Cancelo at left back / left wing back. So I think we could see Cancelo starting on the left, Walker starting on the right. Even if Cucurella does sign, I feel like Walker could be nailed for the first few. And you can see here that he's got the 3rd best projected points on the list at 16.6 over the first 5. I think Walker's probably my favourite £5 million defender at the moment. Let me know if you think that Walker is nailed on, or if you'd rather maybe go for a slightly more nailed on player. Ederson's only an extra 0.5 is the only thing that puts me off Walker. Trippier is the final one from a different team here. So Trippier, 13.1 projected points, isn't that high, but his points per start was actually the second best on this list. He didn't play that many minutes last season because he picked up a really bad injury. I have got my eye on Trippier though. Again, the fixtures aren't fantastic for Newcastle, as we discussed with Botman, but Trippier just has so many routes to points, corners, free kicks, excellent delivery from out wide, does get into the box a little bit as well. I do think at various points this season, maybe even in game week 1 against Nottingham Forest, Trippier has a 15-pointer in him. He really does. I would not be surprised if Newcastle win 2-0 against Forest and Trippier scores a free kick and gets a 15-pointer. That has it written all over it for game week 1. So I like Trippier. I just think there are maybe slightly better defenses to target. For example, if you get a Gabriel or a Walker, I'd almost guarantee you'll probably get more clean sheets over the first 6 or 7. And then the final 2 are the Spurs wing-back/fullbacks, which I've really gone off, to be honest. The main reason for that is I just don't trust them to start. Doherty in particular, again, by the time you're seeing this, he may have even been sold already. There are a lot of rumours about Doherty being sold. That puts me off slightly. They've got Spence, they've got Moura, they've got Emerson Royale. Perisic, they've still got Reguilon, they've still got Sessegnon as well. They've got Davis who can play out there on the left too. So there are just so many options for Spurs that can play in all of these positions that it puts me off slightly, which is a shame because as you can see by their underlying data, Doherty and Perisic literally blow every single defender out the water at that price point. They even match some of the premium defenders at 0.41 for Doherty last season, expected goal involvement, and 0.4 for Perisic. Now, that wasn't a different league. Remarkable underlying data. And if I'm being honest, if Doherty and Perisic were nailed, I would value them above Cancelo, James, Chilwell. I would value them at the very, very top of all of the defenders to pick. They're just not nailed on, and that does put me off slightly. So unless we get some sort of news that Perisic is definitely fit and definitely ready to start game week 1, which is the slight worry with him, or that Doherty is going to stay in his first choice right back, I would probably be avoiding those Spurs players. So for me, the 2 players that I'm considering most at 5 million are probably Gabriel/Zinchenko and then Walker as well. And if I were to go outside of sort of the top 6 teams, I would probably be looking at Trippier just due to the fact that he has so many routes to points. Let me know down below if you're considering any of these players. Let's finally move on to the premium defenders. So guys, the final price point is the £6 million plus defenders, and we've actually only gotten from 3 teams. I don't know if you knew this anyway, maybe you did. Only from Chelsea, City and Liverpool. So we're only looking at 3 defences here, and they are the 3 best defences in the league as well. So if you just glance to the penultimate column from the right, you can see minutes per expected goals conceded team. The best defence in the league was City by some distance, to be fair, at 137.9 minutes per expected goals conceded. And then we've also got Liverpool at second at 95.1, and then Chelsea at third at 91.9. So they are the best 3 defences in the league. I would expect that to probably continue, although there are some worrying signs from Chelsea in pre-season. They've sold 2 of their biggest, most important defenders as well. So maybe we won't see such a solid performance from Chelsea. But the other 2, I would be very surprised if the 2 best defences in the league aren't Liverpool and City once again. They have been for a couple of years now. Let's start with the Chelsea fullbacks because I think everyone was very keen on them at the start. A lot of people still are, but there are really worrying signs. The comments from Tuchel in pre-season, the performances as well, losing 4-0 to Arsenal, and it was a fairly strong side. Yes, they're still trying to make signings, Chelsea. Yes, they've brought in Koulibaly. It does worry me slightly, and Chilwell's fitness in particular is what puts me off picking Chilwell. Now, you can see points per start last season was exceptionally good, but he didn't play many minutes at all. It was only about sort of 6 or 7 games he ended up playing. Non-penalty expected goal involvement was pretty good at 0.28, but if we throw that back to Perisic and Doherty, it's not the best. It's actually similar to the likes of Lamptey, who we saw at 4.5 million. So it's good for Chilwell, not fantastic. And we haven't yet seen a full season for him in this sort of new formation, playing alongside the likes of James in a 5-back, or if they switch to a 4-back, how that will affect him. So I think for me recently, Chilwell hasn't been in my latest sort of 5 to 10 drafts just due to fitness and due to not wanting to double up on the Chelsea defence. I've been avoiding Chilwell, and that's because in every draft, I still do have James at the moment. I just think that James over Chilwell for me, he's got better underlying data. He looks slightly fitter as well. He can play right centre-back or right wing-back, which whilst that might take a little bit of attacking potential out of James, who plays at right centre-back, I just think that means that he's more likely to play more minutes and get those clean sheets if they do pick them up. So for me at the moment, I'm favouring James over Chilwell, and I'm not on a double up at all anymore. I'm much more interested in doubling up on the City defence because I think they are the best defence in the league. So let me know down below what you think of James versus Chilwell. But for me, James has been in pretty much every single one of my drafts. We then move on to Diaz and Laporte. At the time of recording this, it looks like Laporte is still struggling with injuries. So it looks quite likely that Laporte won't start the season. Even if he does, I'm not sure that I'd want to take that risk anymore. Especially when I actually thought that Laporte was a significantly greater goal threat than Diaz. Their numbers are quite comparable from last season. If you look at the non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90, Laporte at 0.19. Diaz at 0.17. So it's really not that too dissimilar between the two of them. And I think considering that Diaz is having a full preseason and Diaz before his injury last season was very, very nailed on. I think if I'm going to go for a £6 million defender, I go for Diaz. or I drop to Walker, or what I've personally been doing myself is Ederson and Cancelo in a double up. And I just think for 5.5 million, Ederson's going to start. I think I prefer Ederson to Diaz and Laporte there. But they are both good options. Fantastic defence, as we spoke about in the Walker sort of section. I would definitely try and get at least one City defender in. We've got Diaz and Laporte from City. You've then got the two centre-backs from Liverpool, Matip and Van Dijk. Matip actually has the superior goal threat last season at 0.18. Van Dijk's was quite underwhelming at 0.1. And I just think that whilst they picked up a lot of points, Matip and Van Dijk last season, I think if you're going to go for someone at that price, you go for Chilwell and James, who are significantly more attacking, or you go for Diaz and Laporte playing in the slightly better defence with better numbers, rather than Matip and Van Dijk. I just don't see the value at that price point, especially Van Dijk at 6.5, going for those centre-backs from Liverpool. So I'm not saying they're bad options. They will score goals 100%. I do believe that with Matip and Van Dijk. But with Konate waiting in the wings with a bit of rotation for Matip, and Van Dijk's pretty poor numbers last season in comparison to the other premium defenders, I think you can probably do better than the Liverpool centre-backs, which leaves us with the three most expensive defenders. They are probably the three best defenders on this list. Cancelo, very consistent numbers. What I would say is he doesn't get many goal-scoring opportunities. He took something like 81 shots last season, which everyone looks at. It was one of the most shots in the Premier League. None of them were from good goal-scoring opportunities. He accumulated something like 5 XG across the entire season. He shoots from everywhere, doesn't get him many good goal-scoring opportunities. But what Cancelo does is he is absolutely lethal with his assists and gets into really good positions to cut the ball back. And what Pep's been saying recently is that they're going to try and do even more of that this season because they've got Haaland. So they're going to do a lot of getting to the byline and cutting it back. I'm not sure if you saw him pre-season. They scored a goal where De Bruyne played Grealish in. He got to the sort of byline and he cut it back to Haaland. Pep basically said they want to do more of that. And I think that's exactly where Cancelo is so effective. So I think Cancelo might even beat his assist total from last season. And for me, I started pre-season by not having Cancelo, but I think I've convinced myself over the last couple of weeks to make sure I've got Cancelo in my draft. So I'm a big fan of Cancelo. 0.33 non-penalty expected goal involvement is one of the best on this list here. And I do still think he's nailed on whether they sign Cucurella or not. Robertson, interestingly, his underlying data is not that great. And I say not that great in comparison to Chilwell, James, Cancelo, Trent. It's still fantastic at 0.26 non-penalty expected goal involvement. But I think what you get with Robertson that's so fantastic is he'll play 90 minutes almost every week. And he's very, very consistent, right? So you can rely on him to get a return every sort of 3 to 4 games. He gets quite a few hauls as well, but I feel like he ticks along really nicely. And whether it's a clean sheet, which he'll get a lot of, or an attacking return, you almost feel like you're picking up at least like 6 to 10 points almost every single week from the likes of Robertson and Trent. But his underlying data itself isn't fantastic. And this is why when people are going Robertson over Trent, if you look at their non-penalty expected goal involvement, Trent's is almost double Robertson's. Trent is worth the extra 0.5 on top of Robertson. So if there's one key take-home message from the premium section, in my opinion, go Trent over Robertson. And if you want Robertson, do it alongside Trent, in my personal opinion. Because you can see here, Trent has the highest projected points. He has the second highest points per start. If we remove Chilwell, who didn't play many minutes at all, he's got the highest points per start. By far and away, the best non-penalty expected goal involvement. 0.5 is better than like Grealish, Sancho, Rashford. Better than most attackers you'll see. And he gets clean sheets. And playing in the second best defence in the league with the second best fixtures. So I guess the Trent's amazing is what I'm trying to say here. If you don't have Trent in your team, I don't understand that. I don't think it's worth using. If you need to save 0.5, I don't think the place to do it is to go for Robertson over Trent. That isn't to say that Robertson won't outscore Trent over some parts of the season. I just wouldn't want to bet on that myself. So I think if you're going for sort of the optimal defence, for me, Trent needs to be in there. I think you need a City defender, and in my opinion, it's probably worth paying the extra money for Cancelo over Diaz and Laporte. Maybe not over Ederson. 1.5 is a lot to save, but let's say Trent, Cancelo, and then I'd say a £6 million defender, one of Laporte, Diaz, James, or Chilwell, probably James. So it might be a fairly obvious point, but if I were choosing only 3 of these, it would be Trent, Cancelo, and James. Let me know down below what premium defenders you currently have, if you think this is a fair assessment of the premium defenders we've got to choose from, or if maybe you think I'm giving some of these a slightly hard time. So guys, there you have it. That is the first of a 3-part series where we're looking at the best defenders, best midfielders, and best forwards. Let me know down below, what is your 5-defender situation currently looking at? What formation are you playing? So say I'm playing a 4-back formation, then list me your 5 defenders. Just to give you an update on what my current draft looks like. I've basically got Ederson in most of my drafts. I've then got Cancelo, Trent, and James. As I said, the 3 premium defenders that I really like. I've then got a 4.5, which I'm sort of rotating between that Duncan Lamptey, as I said, Brentford defender, Dalot, and then maybe I'm sometimes pushing towards a £5 million, such as a Zinchenko or a Kyle Walker. And then I've also got Nico Williams at 4 million, just because I think it's nice to have a £4 million option there. But do let me know what your defense is currently looking like. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel and you're enjoying the first of this 3-part series, please do drop a like, please do subscribe. We're really trying to push towards 20,000 subscribers before the start of Game Week 1. I do really appreciate you watching. Until next time, which is tomorrow, the midfielders, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.